If you haven't heard of Gautam Adani before, I can assure you, you definitely will not forget him after this. He was Asia's richest man that lost $50 billion in a day and alleged to have pulled off the largest con in corporate history. Just late last year, he overtook Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, and even surpassed Jeff Bezos as the second richest person in the world. His wealth grew massively beyond what analysts could ever have predicted last year. Oddly enough, his company, the Adani Group's magical growth seems to almost fall within the same time frame that his hometown friend, the Indian Prime Minister, has been in power. Despite previously being in a seemingly powerful, bulletproof position, things don't seem to be good for him lately. He's now making headlines everywhere. For example, his mining company in Australia is said to be behind Australia's most controversial mine, and here it says he targets sovereign funds in capital raising spree, and more negativity is being reported because of one single report from a company called Hindenburg Research, and boy, they did some thorough research on him and his company. According to them, his company engaged in a brazen stock manipulation, money laundering, and accounting fraud scheme over the course of decades. In a matter of days, he has seen a very rapid and dramatic decline in his wealth, and the Adani Group lost $90 billion in value within days. Adani's personal fortune decreased by more than $50 billion due to 2 years of investigations, which led to the report accusing Adani of engaging in some of the biggest cases of market manipulation, improper use of offshore tax havens, money laundering, and pulling off what has been called the largest con in corporate history. For example, he was accused of participating in stock rigging with a notorious market fraudster in India named Ketan Parekh, a stockbroker who was suspended from trading for 14 years due to his involvement in manipulating the prices of at least 10 stocks, including some of Adani's companies. It was alleged through these investigations that 14 private companies belonging to the Adani Group transferred shares to entities managed by this fraudster, resulting in obvious stock manipulation of an Adani entity that was listed. However, despite Adani's companies initially facing bans for his role, these bans were later downgraded to just fine. In addition to that, it's alleged that Adani companies have been utilizing offshore capital to hold stocks and also using a fraudulent method of bringing the money back onshore, then incorporating it into the balance sheets of his publicly listed companies through the process of money laundering. Whilst trying to avoid tax, his companies utilize complex organizational structures and interrelated transactions, which increases suspicion of fund diversion and money laundering. The 7 key listed companies belonging to Adani have a combined 578 subsidiary companies, several of which are established in jurisdictions with a reputation for being opaque, such as Mauritius and Panama. One of the accusations is that he overvalues his companies to appear that they are much more valuable than they are. 7 listed companies of the Adani Group are 85% or more overvalued. On many occasions, it's alleged stock market analysts have been arrested for writing negatively about the companies. And so it's alleged that Adani's corporate fraud has largely gone unchecked due to this ongoing threat. Gautam Adani was born in a small Indian town. Adani always had an entrepreneurial spirit, and he didn't inherit his fortune. He dropped out of college after the second year to start a career and moved to Mumbai to start working as a diamond sorter. His first job lasted for 2 to 3 years. Thanks to his trade savvy, he struck out on his own and opened a diamond brokerage. It was the first business he tried his hand at. His next big opportunity was when his brother asked him to come back to Ahmedabad to help run the plastic factory he had established. Adani soon found himself importing PVC to India and officially entering the global trade scene. But Adani quickly realized the need to use offshore accounts to settle international trade payments, and there's the opportunity to avoid tax. Whilst avoiding tax, him and his brothers also started to get involved in import-export scams involving diamonds, coal, iron ore, and gross overvaluation of power equipment. These were some of the early building blocks of the Adani business empire, according to multiple investigations by the Finance Ministry's Anti-Smuggling Unit and other national and state-level investigative authorities. All these being made possible as a result of close alliance with influential people in power and controlling the media, according to allegations. As anyone living in India would know, Adani is a strong supporter and very close ally of the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Modi and Adani are from the same small hometown in India. In fact, Modi flew to Delhi on Adani's private jet after winning the 2014 election, and ever since Modi came to power, Adani's net worth has increased by almost 250%. And Adani has now officially taken over one of the most prominent news channels in India called NDTV. This has been described by a professor of media at the London School of Economics in the UK as a worrying trend where the media space for democratic information and debate in India has been relentlessly narrowing in recent years, with large media houses bought and paid for by owners with ties to the far right and allegiances to those in power. What's funny is that Adani once said, "Every criticism gives me an opportunity to improve myself," which I guess he now has a $50 billion opportunity to improve himself. But Adani is alleged to have sought to have critical journalists jailed or silenced through litigation, using his immense power to pressure the government and regulators to pursue those who question him. Saying every criticism allows you to improve yourself doesn't go along with silencing the people who have criticized you. The documented widespread nature of corruption in India affects multiple levels of government. The alleged bias of the securities regulator in India, known as SEBI, towards protecting rather than punishing those who engage in corruption further undermines the integrity of the system. Another example is the fact that the Adani Group has faced numerous allegations of corruption and theft of taxpayer funds totaling an estimated $17 billion US. However, its alleged investigations have either been stopped or appear to have been obstructed by various arms of the Indian government. Whether true or not, when the Prime Minister who is from your hometown and flies on your private jet, there is an implication that you can get away with almost anything. Some of the key areas where the Adani Group is involved include ports and logistics, agribusiness, energy, defense, real estate, financial services, and many others. However, the stock prices of 7 key Adani Group companies listed on the stock market have experienced a significant increase over the past 3 years, with most seeing a multiple-fold rise. These companies now rank individually as some of India's largest companies, which in itself is questionable because typically infrastructure companies have a reputation for being slow-growing and having low stock valuations. However, these Adani Group's listed companies have bucked this trend and have valuations that are comparable to highly valued high-growth technology companies. As a matter of fact, out of the 7 key Adani companies listed on the stock market, 4 of them have negative free cash flow, suggesting a deterioration in their financial health. However, his access to loans from Indian banks has largely funded the firm's acquisition-driven growth. Also, from 2015 to 2021, 6 companies belonging to the Adani Group managed to raise approximately $10 billion through bond sales denominated in US dollars, which were facilitated by investment banks based in the US and Europe. And Adani has been on the other side of crime. For example, in January 1998, Adani and an associate were allegedly abducted and held hostage for ransom, but were released without collecting the money. 2 former gangsters were accused of the kidnapping, but they were acquitted in an Indian court after Adani and his associate did not show up for depositions. Adani would also make his publicly owned companies into a family affair, and the report alleges several members have been engaged in fraudulent activity. The Adani Group is primarily controlled by members of the Adani family, with the founder and chairman Gautam Adani himself being the key decision maker in all of the company. His younger brother Richest Adani has been arrested twice in 1999 and 2010 over allegations of customs tax evasion, forging import documentation, and illegal coal imports. Normally, when an executive is alleged to have initiated a plan to cheat the government and repeatedly arrested on allegations of other fraudulent activities, they are usually fired. In certain countries, they may also be sentenced to jail, or at least the company would publicly distance themselves for the appearance, even if they got a cushy behind-the-scenes job. But Rajesh was instead promoted and still sits on the executive board of the Adani Group. What about Gautam Adani's brother-in-law, Samir Vora? Samir was allegedly the leader of a diamond trading scam and faced accusations of repeatedly making false statements to regulators. He was also promoted as executive director of Adani Australia. But it's the involvement of his elder brother, Vinod, which has been a point of contention. He's been named by India Today as being part of the Panama Papers. Last year, he was the richest non-resident Indian and the 6th richest Indian person. A large part of the report is dedicated to the web of offshore entities it says are connected to Vinod that seem to hold billions of dollars in Adani-listed companies. The Hindenburg report included a question relating to Adani's involvement to regulators, claiming that Vinod Adani was not at all having any involvement in any Adani group of companies. But the Hindenburg report alleges the Adani Group has a labyrinth of offshore shell entities directed by or associated with Vinod Adani. The report also questions the source of funds for suspect transactions between the Adani Group entities and entities associated with Vinod Adani. Even a former executive of the company once said, "It's a family business, you know. It has been developed as a family business. It's the first generation business. In the Adani Group, Gautam Adani, his brother, his sons, the culture has not changed since the time it was a small business." And this is the man that completed its $10.5 billion leverage buyout of a cement business from Swiss firm Holcim. In June 2021, Adani Enterprises experienced a significant drop in their stock value with a decrease of up to 25%. Other companies within the Adani Group saw a decrease in their stocks as well, with losses ranging from 4 to 8%. The decline was due to the media controversy over the identity of the ultimate beneficial owners of offshore funds that had a substantial investment in Adani stock, as well as reports that their trading accounts had been frozen. Now, it should be noted that Hindenburg Research is a financial firm that seeks to profit from short-selling share prices, and the Adani Group published a 413-page rebuttal denying all of the allegations and dismissing them as a calculated attack on India, the independence, integrity, and quality of Indian institutions, and the growth story and ambition of India. And the Adani Group claimed to have complied with all local laws and made necessary regulatory disclosures. And I think it's only fair to note that a billionaire being friends with rich and powerful people is a natural occurrence and does make it easy to say he can do this or that because he is friends with the Prime Minister. Anyone who owns so many businesses in such a wide-ranging group of businesses is going to have controversies. And giving family members positions within a company despite their past and reputations can also be interpreted as loyalty. From what I could find, the kidnappers who are alleged to have kidnapped Adani have not found any tragedy, and I would think that if you're going after journalists who write something bad about you, that people who actually kidnapped you would be finding some kind of really bad fate. So for what that's worth, I think that also speaks to something. However, Hindenburg Research's website lists a series of successful articles that led to investigations, charges, fines, and resignations. They have a history of going after very large organizations who can fight accusations. And so far, the market has reacted strongly against the Adani Group since the release of the report. Hindenburg Research also responded that only 30 pages of the 413-page rebuttal focused on issues relating to its report.